Now, I've been asked to do many things in my career, some of which I'm not very proud of. Voicing an intro to Battles with Bits of Rubber with Stewart and Todd, well, that ranks right up near the top. I believe it's some kind of a podcast.
It's been a productive week.
It has. We managed to shoehorn a lot in, but very stressful. Tuesday was very stressful. Monday was quite stressful. Trying to get our heads around a scanner.
Yeah, it's and we're still trying to do that. But I think getting Nolan on a Zoom call again yesterday with both of us,
yeah,
made a big difference.
So this was the guy from Artec that was really quite helpful. I mean,
yeah,
filling in blanks.
Yeah, I've got to say, the folks at Artec have been extremely available and helpful from the get-go.
Yeah.
From the moment they said, yeah, we'd love to be involved and get you a scanner to play with for the book. Matthew McMillan, who is at their headquarters in Luxembourg, has been reaching out and very, very receptive to the feedback we've provided, and their office in California, where Nolan Doctor, who's their tech guy, one of their tech guys, has been very accessible for Zoom calls. It's terrific, and giving us documentation to
wade through.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff, but
it is. So we should probably explain a bit about the nature of scanning, because some people might not even know what we're talking about.
Yeah, because
what a scanner is.
It's been an eye opener for me.
Yeah.
I have a little RevoPop 2 scanner that's pretty straightforward, but it doesn't have the detail that the Spider does.
No.
Which has incredible detail. But the pictures and posts that I see on Instagram don't come close to painting the whole picture. I mean, the stuff that I see Louis Zakarian doing for Saturday Night Live, you see him moving the scanner around an actor's head, and voila, there's this scan of the head, and it's not like that at all.
No. I think that's the biggest eye-opener for me. It's not like point and click like a camera.
The magic really happens after you scan, and there's a method to getting the scan data right.
Yeah.
But it's pieces that have to be sewn together rather than one object that you're creating just by moving the scanner around.
Yeah, you sort of stitch them together, don't you, with the software? Which was weird for me, because the only other scanner I've seen has been scanners, and they tend to build the model as you scan, so you see the complete model. I suspect because it's taking fewer images, because it's not as detailed. But the point is, you end up with a model and you sort of know what you've got before you stop scanning. Whereas this way, you're grabbing pieces with an eye to assembling them afterwards.
At a rate of 8 frames, or up to 8 frames a second.
Yeah, so you might capture, 1,000 of these still images, essentially, and then the software will stitch them together. I think that's the gulf of difference, is like not really understanding.
Yeah, the software is really quite sophisticated.
Yeah.
There are ways you can shortcut things, but you're not going to get the same results that you would if you took the time to really work every image and stitch them all together there's a format, kind of a pattern.
Yeah, but it works well, but it's just it's a process which is probably familiar to engineering types in the engineering world.
Yes, but
who normally would use that scanner for scanning engine blocks,
but us so-called artists,
we're not like that. We're a bit clumsy.
It's alien technology.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the divide between people that take to scanning with this stuff, because the danger is a more user-friendly scanning company will make all that easier. Yeah, and it will be like cameras.
And who knows? Maybe some of the feedback we're given to Artec will incentivize them to dumb some of it down for
Well,
creatives.
That, and I just think the technology will change. Like, in the same way, you know, if you wanted to take a picture 150 years ago, you needed quite a lot of stuff. You know, you needed a bellows camera and it sit still for 2 minutes, and then you need silver nitrate sheets and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Now you just tap a picture. So I think it will get easier as time goes by.
Yeah,
But,
dark rooms are becoming a thing of the past.
That was a good experience, because we spent Tuesday pretty much completely confounded, restarting the computer, reinstalling software. Software was crashing, and I think
Recalibrating the scanner a couple of times.
and it's a lot of work.
And it's turns out that it's just operator error.
Well, there's operator error, but there's also, like they were saying, there was some kind of issue with it syncing with. There's a default setting to sync your saved data with Microsoft Cloud.
OneDrive.
OneDrive, and it's just, do you know what I mean? So it's just little things like that. So when you've got all these little moving parts working together, it's inevitable there's going to be.
Yeah, Microsoft, are you listening? You don't have to have your fingers in everything.
Well, yeah. I mean, Apple would probably do it, but they charge £10 billion for it. But that's the cost of it, isn't it? If what we're talking about, something that's quite sophisticated. Actually, it's quite sophisticated. It's not what normal people will do. Certainly not what I've done before. I'm unlikely to do, because if I needed a reliable scan tomorrow, I certainly wouldn't go out and buy a scanner. I'd pay someone who does this all the time to do it, because I really get how their knowledge of it is valuable.
Yeah, also what you're talking with Frank, you know, there's a learning curve to it.
Yeah.
And it's steeper than I thought it was going to be. And thankfully I'm going to have the scanner for a while yet. You know, it's middle of August. I'm going to have this thing till
you'll have it nailed.
Till the end of September. I just wish you were going to be able to hang longer so we could play with it together and learn it together.
You'll enjoy. I mean, when you're done, you'll be like, I'm not giving it back. What's scanner? What are you talking about?
I feel very good that Artec was willing to trust me with an almost $25,000 piece of equipment.
Well, I think what's good as well. I mean, we're thinking about this on Tuesday, whether we should record after our really shitty day of trying to get this thing to work, and I'm glad we didn't, because the thing is, there's so much to it that what I think is good about our experience with this is you've gone through what people like us would go through.
Yeah.
Because we're not stupid, but it's just that it's a different thing. You've got to think about it in a different way. And that's not usual with most of the tools we have. So,
and now it's going to be a matter of repetition.
Yes.
Because that's how learning takes place.
Yeah, and learning the terminology and the phrase. A little bit, you know, when you're using things like Fusion 360 and you would learn technical words for things like the draft when you mean an angle or something. I've never used that word when I'm making a mould with clay, but that's what it's called in engineering and, you know, technical drawing. So when you learn that, it suddenly becomes... So that kind of shorthand makes things easier.
Well, like color.
Yes.
With the Artec or texture.
Texture is colour.
Yeah, they say texture when they mean color.
But that's presumably what the scanning world calls.
Well, it is what the scanning world calls.
Which is odd, because I call colour the reflection of light off of surfaces. How I interpret,
texture is
different waveforms,
bumpiness or texture.
Well, I guess in a way, colour is texture, because if you, for example, if I look at the roof of your cabin there, I can see different shades. Those are different frequencies of light reflecting back. The brighter ones are reflecting more light and the darker ones less. So it's giving the illusion of texture. There is a form to it, but because the scanner's an optical scanner, it's taking images. That's what it is. Yeah. So it's turning colour into texture. Kind of like when you make a
learning just took place.
It did. Yeah, there we go. There's me telling them off for saying the wrong thing. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. We don't... That's a very technical thing, but if somebody who paints all the time thinks about colour, they probably know that intellectually, but they're very invested in colour, mixing and pigments and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I mean, it's that difference, and there's a million and one of those little differences.
It comes down to being able to speak the same language.
Yeah, which is why I think it's quite interesting when you see practical people doing digital stuff and becoming familiar with it, because they can integrate with them.
Yeah, it took me a little bit to get my head around the whole X, Y, and Z axis, going from CGI to printing, 3D printing.
Yeah.
Because in CGI, the Z axis is foreground to background and front to back, and X is side to side and Y is up and down. Or in 3D printing, Z axis is up and down and Y is front to back. But as you pointed out, with the 3D printing, you're basically looking down the Z axis, how it prints. So
it's tricky, isn't it?
Front to back.
Like how you wipe your ass.
Yeah. You reach around or you go straight under.
So that was unnecessary. I'm sorry. The ability to not say something when it occurs to me because I think it's funny has gotten me into a lot of trouble at school, but it still keeps happening. Fuck it, it's our podcast. I could be rude.
You are who you are.
Yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, so we've had some fun with this scan, and that was very cool. We're sitting on the porch, which is where you can hear
on the back porch.
The back porch, the actual back porch of Back Porch Effects. It's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah.
We did this a while ago, but it was a long time ago.
Long time ago.
Before we had the Catio, I think.
But Catio didn't exist then.
Yeah.
Which is where we are now.
So you hear the occasional hawk. There might be, if we're lucky, some kind of jet fighter flying overhead from the nearest
possibly
Air Force base.
Well, it's just now 7 a.m. Reveille doesn't blow on base till 7:30.
Okay.
so the chair force is still asleep. An invigorating sound to hear these fighter jets booming overhead in full afterburner, which happens frequently.
So we should probably get on with our episode, which this one is with Frank Ippolito, who very kindly spoke to us.
Yeah, Frank is a good guy.
So he runs a company called Thingergy. I hope I say it right. It's not Thingergy, is it? It's Thingergy.
No, it's Thingergy.
Thingergy INC. And we did go there a couple of years back. We visited when we were at Monsterpalooza, I think it was. Mm-hmm. We popped round. But he's expanded since. But they make a lot of speciality. Frank started out doing prosthetics, didn't he? There's a lot more speciality.
Yeah, he worked for V. Neil for a couple of years, before Face Off.
Yes, he was on Face Off, and then he did a lot of stuff with Tested, didn't he? He did a lot of videos doing makeups.
He's a world-class mold maker.
Yep.
He would probably disagree about that, but he is a very good mold maker.
Yes, and he was. They had a podcast called Creature Geek with another guy, Len Peralta, which was a great podcast. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he's got time to do that anymore. We mentioned it briefly. We discussed that a bit in the podcast.
But he's made a pretty concerted switch from makeup effects to specialty costumes.
Yes.
To the effect that he's got quite the operation going on.
Yeah, and they got some good credits. Things like Mandalorian,
Umbrella Academy,
the Orville.
The Orville.
You know, a lot of really cool suits and creature
shows
things.
that don't suck.
Exactly. But what's interesting is a lot of the processes are the same as from the prosthetic world. You talk about molding, casting, painting, all that kind of stuff, but he's hugely involved with the digital side of things, i.e. scanning bodies to make sure that suits fit.
Yeah, how many scanners, 3D printers do they have now?
I think he said like 21 or something.
Yeah, and some of them are quite large.
Yeah, necessarily. And I don't know if that includes milling machines as well, because that may happen off-site if you're doing big stuff that you only use.
He's got machining. They've got CNC all on site.
Yeah, but he's grown over the years. I mean, he's one of those guys that's steadily grown. We talk about this in the podcast that there are a lot of people that are very good at making stuff, but not everyone can then go and run a company, which involves fighting for budgets, firing people. There's quite uncomfortable things to do.
Payroll. It's a business, and it needs to be looked on like a business. It's not the same as being a one-man operation like you and I are.
Yeah, no, it's
most of the
real
time.
Step up. Yeah, absolutely. So it's really, it was interesting to talk to him and see, from his point of view, from someone that was freelancing and grown steadily, how he feels about that on what
to now being the man.
Yeah. So thank you, Frank, for that. I guess listen to his chat now and tell us what you think. Hello,
Frankie Rocket.
Good morning, guys.
How are you?
Oh, wonderful.
So things have grown since we saw you last out
Oh,
there.
shit. Yeah, my building's 14,000 square feet.
Jesus.
Big shop. Yeah, you guys got to come visit sometime.
Would love to.
Yeah, man. That
Anytime.
sounds good. Yeah, when we saw you done some stuff. I think you'd started on Umbrella Academy because I remember there were some things we weren't allowed to cover in the photos that we took.
Oh yeah. Okay,
but
so you've been in this big shop then.
I've been in this shop, yeah, but you've
Okay.
expanded since because you had one room with 3D printers in. I'm guessing you have more now.
We have 3 rooms with 3D printers. Yeah.
There you go.
Yikes.
Yeah, we have like 20 some printers now.
Yeah. I can
Yeah.
imagine.
Amazing. Artec just sent me a space spider to play with that we
Yeah.
are having some learning and
Yeah.
having a ball with. And
Yeah, the Artec stuff's really nice.
and Formlabs is sending me this week a 3L to play with. So I'm really excited to use the Artec and the Formlabs together. There was a pretty stiff learning curve with the spider. We spent yesterday, exuding much profanity.
Well, that's because
And
we're
I-
idiots with it.
Yeah,
to be honest. I have no
and
idea.
I was about to box the thing up and send it back to him. And
No, there's
and then-
for
and then-
sure a
and
learning
then-
curve.
And then suddenly, boom, it was Jesus beams from the sky. And
I think doubling the RAM helped.
yeah, I went out and doubled the RAM in my computer, which
Well-
made an immediate difference.
So we have an Artec Eva, and we have it running on a gaming computer. Like I got the most powerful gaming laptop I could get, and that's what we run that thing
Yeah.
on. You just need to give it all the juice. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got 32 gigs of RAM now, and
There you go.
it's changed. It changed everything from us wanting to
Yeah.
spit on it and send it back, and did a scan this morning that turned out beautifully.
Yeah.
First time around.
It's very
Yeah, they're
cool.
good things. What would be like your focus of what you guys want to like chat about? Like which direction do we want to go? Because there's so many things that have changed in
There
what
are.
I do.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that we wanted to, that your transition from practical makeup effects to
Sure.
what you're doing now, if it was a conscious effort on your part, or if it just kind of
Sure.
happened,
Mm.
because it's clearly was a good move.
Yeah, well, people need
At
to,
least it certainly appears to be.
yeah, people need to grow and change, and they're like everything is a learning curve, and you learn what makes you happy, and you learn how things work for you and for your environment. And if you're not growing and learning and changing, then you're stagnant, and there's nothing good about that.
Were you kind of a builder or fabricator as a kid, or is this something that happened as a kind of result of being out in LA?
Well, I think that for me, I think that it's always been the process that I like, and making monsters and doing makeup effects and creatures was like the entry level. Like so many people of my generation, you see the making of Thriller and a light goes off and that's what you want to do. And as I learned to love the whole process of it, I found that making props or specialty costumes or all these other, or statues or all these other things that we do scratches that same itch. And honestly, the clients are a little bit easier. We don't have to deal with, an actor trying to play on his phone while you're doing makeup. Like there's so many things about it that are just a little bit easier for us. And then also the entity as a company has grown. It just makes more sense, because if I was just doing makeup, then I would be off on set or something like that all the time. And then you'd have to divide, my attention. And I think that it's not for me.
Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, immediately it was Greg Nicotero and Howard Berger came to mind with K&B, that they're both always on set.
Yeah, and
doing
then you have to have
something,
somebody else
and you got
running
somebody
your
running the
shop.
shop.
It's a tough gig, and also there's so many things you can't control that it can be a very unsatisfactory experience. Whereas if you could be involved in the making, you sort of can be more in control of that, and the things you make.
Yeah, I do really love doing the actual work, like building the things and everything. Once you start owning the company, you do a little bit less of that, just because you have to run the company.
Yeah, I wondered about that, whether or not you still get hands-on, or if you're frustrated
We
with other
we
time.
wondered about that. We took
Both.
a walk this morning, kind of trying to figure out how we wanted to approach this morning, and that was actually one of the thoughts that we,
because I guess that's the price it pays. But I mean, I'm very grateful to people like you, because it means, because not everyone, there are lots of people that make stuff. Not everyone that makes stuff can also run a company, but you need to have people that can run a company. It's because it gives lots of other people work. So it's necessary, but the cost to you personally is you don't get to make as many nice things, which is presumably why you started doing this stuff. But
it's a tough one. Like, I think that as a baseline, nobody knows what the hell they're doing. People that run a company, for all the clients that we have, we work with all the giant studios, all the department heads, nobody knows what they're doing. They're all making it up as they go. So anybody that has this idea, once we get to Hollywood, that's going to be the right way to do it, or that they're going to really have their shit together. It never works that way. So we're always making it up as we go. So somebody that quote unquote knows how to run a company, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm only learning from my experiences as I go along. When I started this, I started just like hiring friends and people that I knew. And in the past, I had worked with people that I would just like invoice and you like 1099 them. For all you in the UK, I don't know if that's the same thing over there. Like there's a payroll thing and then an invoicing thing.
Yeah.
So people were just invoicing me, which I learned later on is once you become like a legitimate company, it's not the way you should be doing things. And that kind of bit me in the ass a little bit, but I learned from it. And now, it's all payroll. And then I learned that going union, the American movie industry is almost all union based. And the only people that aren't unionized are makeup effect shops and CG animators. That's it. Like everybody else is union. You go on set, everybody's union on set. Oh, maybe not the PAs. And, all the people that build the props, all the people that build the costumes, like all this stuff, they're all supposed to be union. And so why do, we as creature effects, makeup effects, blah, 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 why aren't we unionized? There's no reason that we couldn't or shouldn't be. So in going from invoicing to payrolling to then unionizing, it just made sense to do it the right way. And that was all a learning curve also. And then once you start
unionizing, change the way you're doing business.
Not at all. Absolutely not at all. The only thing that's different is that now I know that every single one of my employees has pension and healthcare benefits. And so we could all sleep at night. The cost is a little bit more payroll costs, but nothing catastrophic. People can still negotiate for higher rates if they think that they're fancy and they want more money. So it doesn't prevent people from making more money. It just sets a really nice baseline. So, and then, when for me, I'm bidding against other union companies most of the time. If I'm building props, I'm bidding against the 3 or 4 other big union prop shops out here. So all of our numbers are, right around the same because we're all on an even playing field, and even in like specialty costume land, there's a couple of non-union, well, most specialty costume shops in LA are non-union. There's only 3 of us that are. So when I'm bidding against the other ones, the non-union companies are often more expensive than me. So it's not even a price issue. But other than that, it hasn't changed anything. The union doesn't bother me on how I run the business or how anything happens. They just have a baseline of treat your people good. And if you're a good business owner and you treat them good anyways, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it kind of elevates the whole game then, doesn't it, for everybody? So it's not
Well, it levels the playing field if everybody's union, and this is such a freelance industry. It like blows my mind that more companies haven't jumped onto this bandwagon. I hate to turn this into like Frank's union speech, but
no, it totally makes sense.
It's almost like all these other companies are either cowards or they're greedy, and they think that the union is going to change their company or change how they run it, or they're greedy and they don't want to pay benefits to their employees, and they have these like golden handcuffs of, well, if you work here, you have insurance, so what's your problem? But it's a freelance industry. People go from shop to shop. If we're all union, we could get our benefits no matter where we go, and we don't have to worry about things lapsing between when you're, at a different place. I don't know. If you just frame it as it's just another level of taking care of your employees within your facility, you can't look at it as it needs to be a stepping stone to working on set, or it needs to be this, or it needs to be that. Like the person that's making a mold down in my shop is not somebody that's ever going to go to set. I mean, we don't usually go to set anyway. We don't care. Like we're just here in the shop. Like their goal is not, I want to go be a mold maker on set. So he doesn't care about that stuff. So there's all these like things that other people are like fixated on of why they don't want to be like go union. It's just like, come on, guys. It's just going to make it better for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's knowing both sides of that score rather than just thinking, oh, I know what I know, and union's different to that, so that frightens me. It's a case of, yeah, but the benefits are actually
far outweighing. Yeah, in a country where we don't have nationalized healthcare, like Canada, or you guys have that over in the UK, don't you?
We do have, yeah. So that's probably it's things like that probably mean the union didn't take as much. We have one called Bectu, but it doesn't seem to have a lot of teeth, in that there are a lot of people I know that don't belong to it or don't need to belong to it, and people just kind of bimble along, hoping the best. But then you'll see people, on forums saying, I got screwed over, this happened, that happened, and maybe if they've been smart, they wouldn't got taken in. But the point is, there isn't as much protection for that, unless of course people make it happen. So
yeah, I mean, if you don't need it in the way your country is structured, then it's kind of a moot point. But for Los Angeles specifically, it's a union town. Like all these other shop owners are just cowards. Like, that's it, plain and simple. Like, go union. It's like better for everybody. You know, you see some of these artists that are in their 50s or 60s and they're struggling, or they don't have, their health isn't good, or this or that, or, you know, you just don't have access to taking care of each other. Come on.
I like that. That's good. That's a good point.
At least that's you know, where I'm coming from. Everybody else has a different, you know, perspective.
Yeah. Well, if it didn't work, you wouldn't be working. Do you know what I mean? It wouldn't.
Yeah. If it didn't work,
and
I wouldn't have been, you know, I'm now 3 years into a union contract. It's up for renegotiation now, and I'm not going to change anything about the contract moving into the next, you know, 3 years that I sign on. So it's obviously working fine.
How many people you have working for you now?
Right now it's 12. You know, fluctuates. Sometimes if we're real slow, it's down to like 8. Or if we're real, like the busiest I've ever been is like 35. And that was a beast. It got very disorganized really fast. And I think that part of that was when I did have that large crew, I wasn't as experienced as I am now about how to manage or structure things. I've learned like so much over the almost 10 years I've had this company about how to deal with people and personalities and, you know, artistic egos and just the needs of everybody. And I've changed over like my crew many times, like who's here. There's only like maybe 2 people that have been here since pretty much the beginning. And I've learned so much about how things work and what kind of people work best in this environment, you know, because I'm not for everybody. And, you know, there might be some amazing artists out there, but they're not for me either.
Yeah.
And the more I'm learning about that and talking to other shop owners or other people, like you hear, you know, stories about literally every shop where somebody either loathes and hates them like to the core, or they think that they're God. You know, I'm not, I try not to stress if people are unhappy with me. It's just, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. But the people that I found here, they're great. Like everybody, like the past 2 years, the crew that I've had, I haven't been all the same people for about 2 years.
Amazing.
And
Yeah.
it's just so nice, you know?
That's really good. And I think that's important for people who are, you know, looking to get into that kind of work to know, because I think a lot of people just think, we've had it, we would discuss this like emails we've had where people go, I've just graduated, I've done this, I can do these things here, hire me. And it's like, there's more to it than that though, isn't there? It's like, but I want to know how you work and what you work like and what you're, you know, how you deal with responsibility as a person. And those things you only find out, I guess, once they start working. So
Yeah.
there's more to you as an employable person than just the certificate you hold in your hand that you think is the golden ticket as a graduate.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
And the culture of every shop is absolutely different. The way the management style is, the way that they structure and run it, like as far as supervisors and who you report to and this and that. The scale of the shop. Some people do great with a shop that's like maybe 3, 4, 5 people. Some people want to work in a big monolith, like, you know, Legacy or something like that, where there's 100 and some people. It's what people work best in, or like, you know, what environment you work best in, or what you're most productive. And, you know, if you just want to put your headphones on and flip pancakes, go over to Legacy. You know, you'll go over to the mold shop and you'll tap glass all day and then you go home, or whatever it is, you know.
Yeah.
So does your crew get involved in a little everything, or do you have people specializing departmentally?
I think that us, you know, all of us, as for what we do, we're kind of generalists. We have, I mean, I know you guys are, just, you know, watching what you guys do and tinker with and build and how you work. And so I think almost everybody is a generalist to some degree, but they have something that they're more inclined to do. You know, so, you know, like people in the sewing department downstairs, they could paint. When we get into a jam, they'll go sling some paint. Not usually, but, you know, push came to shove.
So we had a conversation with Jake Garber a while back, and he brought up point, you know, the more you can do, the more you get to do.
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, some people are like super, super focused and specialized, and that's what they do. And some people can just get plugged in kind of anywhere, and that's what they do. I try to also pay attention to what people want to do. You know, I wouldn't, you know, like the girl Yelena that does most of our 3D work, I wouldn't make her go downstairs and like pour resin. I don't think she wants to do that. I mean, maybe she does. I haven't asked her lately, but.
So how does a workshop look now? Do you still have people that will sling clay and actually build stuff for real on an armature and make molds, or is everything just click a button and the 3D printer spits it out? Because that's what a lot of people think.
It's still a little bit of everything. Sometimes there's a lot of like hand fabrication. You know, moving over into costumes and props, a lot of the props are getting designed and built digitally because a lot of them have mechanical aspects to them or electrical. So we have to make things like function and work together. So the prop stuff is usually more the digital side. The costuming stuff, like we're still draping patterns on body forms and stuff like that, but we're digitally scanning our bodies and then milling them out, and we're building it that way. And then there's a guy that works for me named Gary, and he's been with me from just about the beginning, and he's a really good foam fabricator. And so a lot of times he'll fabricate like the first round of a design of like armor or like spacesuit kind of parts, and then we'll 3D scan that with our Artec or in like our photogrammetry booth, and then we'll take that digitally and start, making vacuum form bucks or,
What
things that will
software are
mold.
you using for your photogrammetry stuff?
Reality capture,
Capturing reality, yeah.
capturing,
That's-
yeah, whatever. Yeah,
That's pretty. Yeah, I've used that. That's pretty neat.
yeah, it's kind of the standard. Like most photogrammetry softwares that I know of use that, unless somebody's got something proprietary. It works fine, and they keep updating it, so it's getting better and better. Our photogrammetry booth has 100 cameras in it, so we get pretty good. You don't get down to like poor level detail, but for body forms and costume forms and what we're doing with it.
How does that handle scale? Do you have to rescale, or does it one-to-one right out of the gate?
Well, with photogrammetry, there's no like scale calibration in there. We have markers in the booth that we know what size they are, and so when we get that data, we scale it to that. But as far as do costumes fit people when they scan them here? Everybody seems to be like right on size. Like we've got that workflow down so that it doesn't cause problems.
Now this is all pretty new, and I know you've been probably at the forefront of a lot of this, because you, like you say, when you started doing a lot of stuff. I remember when we came to see your small shop when we recorded a Creature Geek episode.
Yeah.
And you had like a couple of little resin printers on the go, and that was it.
Yep.
That was it.
Yeah.
And now you're doing all this other stuff. Do you think
that was like 8 years ago?
Yeah. Amazing how time flies.
Or something like that. Yeah, it was like 5 or 8 years ago or something like that.
It's scary. But do you think anybody's teaching this stuff? Because it seems to me a lot of this is what we were finding with the Artec stuff. You're kind of piecing stuff together, and even the training material that the scanning people supply, there seems to be like massive holes in it, because there aren't millions of people using this.
For sure.
So and it's all going to grow over time. But do you think there are people that are teaching it? It still feels a little bit like the Wild West, where people are just grabbing at whatever and piecing together. And some people are smart enough to put the shit together themselves, but there isn't really a handhold. This is how we do it. And I guess you can't really, because things are changing so quickly, that if there was a program that was very specific, it would be different in a couple of years anyway. So, having a bunch of licenses and expensive scanners is kind of redundant. If you're paying 20 grand for a scanner, and then the following year, a rival school starts up with the new scanner and you don't have that scanner, now you're at a disadvantage.
Well, it's kind of like when in the beginning of the CGI craze in the early 90s, when 3D animation was, with Babylon 5 and what was that underwater one?
Oh, DS9.
Sequest.
Sequest DSV.
Yeah, a lot of the software that's developed by engineers who weren't really artists, and the terminology and the workflow wasn't geared to artists. It was geared to engineers, and that's kind of what we're seeing with the Space Spider Artec Studios stuff. Is not really the way artists think about things.
Yeah, you have to put away your artist brain sometimes to use some of these new toys, because they're super technical. And as much as you want it to work in your little like subculture of some sort of art form, and like, why doesn't it do this? It's like, well, 99% of the people that are buying those things are scanning engine blocks. They're not scanning people's faces. So it would be so expensive to cater it to the artists right now, because there's not enough or as many artists using it. It just doesn't make any sense. So we have to put away our artist brain and think of it in a technical sense. I don't know.
I understand. But
well,
sadly, it's easier said than done for most people.
It is, but do you know what? This is the thing. If you're finding, if you're part of a niche that notices that, then maybe you're the person that should do that thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because it's like you were saying with the company. It's like there wasn't a way that you had to be prepared to go through the discomfort of finding out in order to come through the other side. Not everyone wants to do that, but the few that do will make it through, and then now you're somebody that can like be of value, and other people will work for you, and that generates income for lots of it has an expanding ongoing good, and so maybe that's maybe Todd, you should be the one to do this as soon as you're
maybe
struggling with it. Once you get past that, it's a case of let me reword this for the people I know.
We actually have been taking notes and taking photographs that we're gonna, because I'm as I understand it from Artec, I'm the first, or now Stuart, we are the first non-clients of non-paying customers of Artec who have seen their training videos.
So I come in with my blah, 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 blah. We went through them all yesterday, and I made notes of what
So
I thought
we are
wasn't
going to be
very well
providing
worded.
some rather extensive feedback to Artec.
No, yeah, please do. Like I had talked to them a long time ago before I got my Eva, and they said that there was like new stuff coming up, and then I never followed through with them. There's a lot of room for like improvement in how the software kind of works, but like having a structured light scanner, there's only so many things you could do when you're scanning a face that doesn't really have the same kind of indicators that like a geometric object might, or if you're scanning like the body of a car and you put trackers on it and stuff like that. Like I don't know enough about it.
Yeah, well, we're figuring it out, but we got some great results this morning.
Yeah,
with a scan
24
of
hours.
a monster clay sculpture I did several years ago, and it's one color.
Yeah.
But it turned out fucking great.
Yeah. It's so with ours, like we just scanned a body form from somebody else. They didn't have the 3D file of it, so we had to go scan a body form, and it's all about like the pacing that you go, the distance that you go, and then also trusting that the software is going to be able to put together the multiple scans. Like when we're doing most of the front and as much as we can on the sides and back, then we do another scan of different areas, and then just being able to put those multiple scans together, kind of a thing. And then the bigger the scan is, sometimes it'll just naturally break it up into multiple scans, just as file chunks. So it's learning how to trust the software and how to like where you could push it and where you have to be a little bit more conservative.
And there's a little bit of hand-eye coordination involved too, because
for sure, like getting in that green zone.
Yeah, and looking at the monitor rather than looking at the model you're scanning.
Sure.
You got to be looking at a monitor while your hand's moving and keeping it the right distance. It's kind of like flying a helicopter a little bit.
Yeah. Well, like I don't know if you're doing it like on a desktop PC or whatever. We have it on a laptop, and we'll put the laptop on a rolling chair. And so then there's one person moving the rolling chair around so that the other person can.
Well, we're doing it through my desktop now. My laptop doesn't have enough RAM in it.
Put your desktop on a rolling chair; it'll be great.
There we go. But that's the thing. Yeah, it's a two-person operation, but it means you get a good scan. Pretty quickly. Can we talk a bit about, like you were saying, like there are functional parts, because a lot of the stuff you might be doing would be like sort of spacesuits or futuristic things with interlocking. So the scanning, would I be right in saying the scanning provides and working digitally, not exclusively, because you're also going to make a physical suit, but this allows you to do things that were either impossible or very difficult. Like suit complexity will naturally become more so because of the things you don't have to worry about. Like you'll be able to see inside
symmetry. I mean, symmetry is like 90% of it. Yeah. Like when we did, and I can show you some pictures of this. I think I might have put them up on Instagram already. When we did the Guardians for Umbrella Academy, those big like samurai looking dudes.
Yeah, you did put some.
I sculpted only half of that armor, that torso armor. We scanned it and then did it in the computer. That was how we did the symmetry. I didn't have to sculpt the whole thing.
That's fantastic.
It's a huge help.
Yeah, but but also like how joints might work, or if you need to fit cooling mechanisms or clips. Accommodations for those things.
We have a whole sort of library of like the standard fans that we like to use, or switches, or plugs and stuff like that. And so when we're putting things together, like we could just kind of plug in, like this is where these things all kind of go. Like we're building some props right now that have like iPhones for screens, and then they connect to like a Bluetooth like keyboard and all these other things, and all that stuff is just digital assets that we've built that we can just plug in to make these like cool functional props.
I've been working on a project for several weeks now, and early on I was looking for some parts on McMaster Car's website.
Oh yeah, and you can download the files right there.
Yeah, they've got pretty much their entire inventory is available as free downloadable CAD files.
Yeah, you were very excited about that.
It's crazy. So stuff you don't have to you don't have to build yourself in Fusion 360 or in ZBrush.
Well, in Fusion, there's a button in Fusion that says import McMaster file.
Yeah.
Wow. It's you don't even have to like download it and then upload. Like you just click the button and it just pops into your Fusion. Yeah,
it's amazing.
No, it's the integration.
Another check in the column of why I love computers.
There's also another one.
There's
where
a
you hate the
column of
fucking
why I
thing.
hate computers too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like anything else, like even the 3D printers or any of that stuff. We have laser cutters and scanners and all these things, CNCs. It still comes down to having the foresight, I guess, of what's the right tool for the right job. Like just because I have 20 some printers doesn't mean that I'm going to print everything that we do. Sometimes that's not the right way to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, CGI is not the answer to everything. Just
Yeah,
because you
no,
can
for
doesn't
sure.
mean you should.
Well, now the new thing that everybody's all hot and bothered about is shooting on a volume. And everybody thinks that they're going to shoot on a volume for every stupid show. And they don't realize like that they actually have to make a decision of what they're going to shoot beforehand because they got to build an asset. And then they're locked into that where they can't change their mind after it, you know, like what you pick and what you just spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on, like that's what you're going to shoot.
Yes.
Volumes is a whole other learning curve for people. Everybody's thinks that they're all fancy strutting around on a volume, and it's just like, oh.
Explain what that is to people that are going, what's a volume? Because I thought it was a dial on my thing, but yeah, you mean like the sets.
A volume is one of the first big times that they used it was on Mandalorian. It's a big giant wall of monitors, so you can build a background, and so as you move the cameras, it's all controlled through the computer, so that the parallax shift of foreground and background all kind of moves. And then it also gives interactive light. So if you have something that's shiny or reflective, you're going to get the reflection of those background elements. Or like, let's say you're driving in a car and there's like, you know, the window has a little bit of glare. If you have these interactive panels around you, then the reflections are going to work right in the car. And some people just think that they're going to shoot everything at a volume and they don't need to go to locations for stuff. And they don't realize how ridiculous and expensive it is to do that. And it's not a replacement for locations. It's a right tool for the right job.
Yes. Yeah. There is that danger always, I think, when something is new, the first thing that happens is a bunch of people figure out how they can be lazy with it.
Yeah.
And then it'll look like that because someone will take that same technology and work hard with it and produce something amazing. And suddenly, you know, the entry level bullshit is not going to truck anymore.
Well, I mean, think about what we did. Like when silicone started being fancy, everybody was making everything out of silicone. And it's just like,
really translucent and
way too translucent and like waxy looking. And it wasn't until people like really learned how to finesse it. You know, same thing with prostate transfers, all that stuff. Like, you know, there's still a place
goose
for
stickers, as you used to call them.
Hell yeah, goose stickers. Yeah.
But like you say, right tool for the right job. And it's just knowing all those different tools and playing with them. I mean, I think the thing with scanning, and this is what we were talking about, you got that Revo Pop, which is much better price point. It's knowing, it's being able to play with these things at a very low level without a lot of money. Because once you kind of get your head around it and you understand the software, many of which are free, like the ZBrush Core Mini and all that, and Fusion, you can learn these things without spending any money. And then, you know, when you do get to a situation where someone's dealing with a bigger scan or whatever, essentially the job's the same. It's just a higher, you know, bigger file. Needs more processing power, but you've got the nuts and bolts of it in your head.
Well, having the nuts and bolts is like having that foundational like understanding of how something works is literally what our job is, because no job that we do is ever exactly the same. Like we're always reinventing the wheel to some degree.
Yeah.
You know, even if you're making, you know, a nose appliance for one guy, by the time you do the next season, you're going to change it. And I mean, I don't know, maybe you use the same mold, but I mean, you're always changing things. You're always updating it, trying to make it better, trying to make it new. So you have to be able to grow and learn with all these new toys, and nothing moves faster than computer stuff. So that changes every other day.
It does. Yeah. And it feels like there's an old guard that you know, the processes are so sort of beloved that they're kind of almost there are some people very hostile to that, and it's less so now, but I do remember the whole practical digital debate, which is kind of dissolving because the practical elements are now so comfortable using digital, even if it's using a digital camera to take a photo of it. Do you know what I mean? It becomes a familiar language that the lines are just blurring. It's not really what this or that now. It's both.
It's the same thing. Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Which is something I'm pleased to see in my lifetime, because, you know, it was all a bit aggravatory when the two kind of were button heads. Like I said, I remember hearing about the meeting on the first Harry Potter, and there was like, you know, big sort of discussions about the centaurs, whether they were going to be digital or practical, and the practical, in our department doing loads of tests and flocking and on people, and then they went digital, and it was all a bit like, it was a real we want it. It was like a land grab kind of feel. Whereas now I'm like, digital are in every fucking frame anyway. They don't want more stuff. If we can get this on set without doing anything or minimal, we want that. So that's turned around. That's
well, different. It's also cost. Like building a digital character is obnoxiously expensive. There's usually
still,
a cost
CGI
savings.
is still much more expensive than doing things practically.
Almost always. Yeah.
But it still has to be done well as well. I mean, you can spend a fortune. We've seen it,
For sure.
But I do get the sense now, though, that the practical and the digital camps are playing nicer together than they used to.
Well, they kind of got it. The digital people touch up all the practical people's makeups on every single show.
Yeah.
You got to be nice to the VFX people, otherwise they're not going to make your makeups look good.
That will be a good episode on its own, I think, to see to what extent that happens.
Yeah,
it's funny. Like every time new nominations or new shows come out, I have a VFX supervisor friend of mine, and I'll text him and I'll go, "How much of this was touched up?" And he'll tell me what the budget was, touch ups on a show. It blows my mind every time he tells me how much they spend digitally touching up makeups.
And then technically those can't be.
But if it wasn't 8K, they wouldn't have
can't
to
be nominated for a best makeup award.
You'd be surprised.
But then if they didn't make such high resolution, if we stuck with the old NTSC, whatever, however many
let's
it was, but it'd be fine.
Let's go back to VHS tapes, and then we don't have to worry about touching up makeups. Well, it's everything. The lines are so blurred, and I have this conversation with him all the time. It's fascinating and it's sad, but it's also like, hey, it's making everybody look good, so who cares?
Well, that's one of the reasons. The reason Bill Corso started his digital makeup group is because he was seeing the visual effects people touching up makeups and said, well, fuck, if they're going to be doing that anyway, it should be done by makeup people.
You'd think, but in just about any credits of any movie, there's always this company called Lola, and Lola touches up everybody's makeup. There's this fancy expensive actors that have Lola in their contract that they need to be cleaned up by Lola after the fact, just de-aging them or cleaning them up. So next time pay attention to the credits. If you see Lola in there, you know that somebody got touched up. And that's all they do is just touch up people's faces.
LOLA.
Yeah.
LOLA.
Yeah, that is a fascinating area, I think, just on its own, because that retouching thing, because like you say, who then gets to claim it? Because this is the thing, they used to have makeup, used to have digital, and now
digital
everything
makeup
can be digital, and it all intermingles. And
for sure.
And similarly, it's frustrating, like with the BG effects stuff for Vecna, on Last Stranger Things, and people are like amazed that so much of it was practical, because they just assume if they see an extensive effect, it has to be from a computer.
No, I think it was great, and I think that when you have a director and producers and visual effects supervisor and makeup team that all work harmoniously and communicate, then you get that great stuff. It's when you have a lot of these shows, more so these days, they're all just shooting from the hip, and there's not enough time. Like even what we're doing, like building a simple prop, like a phone, to make a phone that's never existed before, that looks and does some funky things, and they're like, oh well, we need it in 3 weeks, which has always been the case for the movie industry, like for all of time. But I feel like it's getting worse and worse these days, and I think that's
probably because of digital capabilities. They think, oh, we can do it digitally, so why do you need so much time?
Oh yeah, you get this beautiful digital illustration, and they're like, can you make this in 3 weeks? We'll figure it out. We do, but it's just like, come on. I think there's a little bit of I don't know if it's I don't want to call it a culture shift. I think that there's something going on right now where there's so much in production, that there's so many producers and department heads, and I'm not just talking about makeup department heads, I'm talking about every department, that are just not as seasoned.
Yes.
And so you have a lot of poor decisions being made because of lack of experience. And a lot of that, all the way up the chain with the producers and the line producers and directors too, that just don't have enough experience, and people aren't getting enough time to do their jobs correctly. I don't feel like it was this bad 2 years ago. And
I can't, my head is going to fall off my head. I'm nodding so far. And then every aspect, especially like payroll and admin-y stuff, where they just seem to just like pull people from wherever, and
Yeah.
things that should be very, very straightforward, like you're 2-3 weeks into a job and I'm like, you still haven't asked my start form, I haven't had this, I haven't had that, and do you know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
just little things, and it's like this never happened 3-4 years ago, but like you said, it's because the sheer volume, they're going to pull people out. And then
Yeah.
a film I was just on as well, like a director, I'm not going to say who, but the director very unfamiliar with how practical effects work, and
Mhm.
making ridiculous demands and choices based on not knowing any of this stuff. And it's like, you're always going to get directors who are doing something perhaps that's unfamiliar to them, but like you say, it's a bit of a trend where they're just pushing these people out because, we just got to start finishing stuff up. And it's like, but they're not the right person to make that job go smoothly, just because you put them in that place doesn't mean they're going to do a great job, and there isn't going to be a legacy of shit to deal with after they fucked off into the next thing.
And a lot of times it's these enormous shows that people love and think all have their shit together. I'm not going to throw every show under the bus, but it's every show.
No, yeah, it seems like the bigger the show, the bigger the shit show.
Yeah,
Kind-
we're not
yeah,
naming names,
kinda.
we're just pointing out that that is the case, because you see the finished thing and there's no evidence really that was the case, but that's why it's good to talk to people that work on these things, because if you're going to get into this, or you like this kind of stuff, you need to know this, because it's not obvious, and it needs to be dealt with in how you approach what you're going to work with. Just getting shafted and working every hour that God sends and not making enough money is precisely what your shop with the union is trying to stop from being the case, because you want to live your life, you want to be doing this for years. And in order to do that, you need to make sure that there are certain conditions met.
It's sort of made me change how I do jobs. So before, I used to just take not everything that came through the door, but we would just keep taking jobs. And I found that we were working way harder and not making any significant gains. We might be taking twice as much work, but we're definitely not making twice as much money. So I started to get a little bit pickier on what things I'm saying yes to, not to the point where I'm like, just sitting there with my arms folded, like, unless it's a perfect job, I'm not taking it. But working with people that I have previous relationships with, or people that I know that aren't gonna, throw us under the bus. There's a bunch of shows that I don't want to take their jobs anymore. Big giant shows that have a company with ears on the logo, like they just don't make us happy, and they don't yield us anything that's gainful, But shows like Umbrella Academy, like I'll take a job from Everett Burrell or Steve Blackman or Jeff King any day of the week, because those producers and showrunners and supervisors like know what they're talking about. They like on everything that we've done on Umbrella. We've had enough time for it. We've had enough money. They've been very reasonable with how we do stuff. Like this third season that we just that just aired, we built these like big crazy costumes. We had just the right amount of time, right amount of money, and everything was fine. We built that main character on the show, Christopher, the cube that lit up, and we had enough time to figure out how to do it. And
those were cool
fucking great.
pictures that you posted. That was a neat build.
And working with those people is a joy. So I'll take their jobs any day.
You want to show that to the other people, and say, look, this is what you can do. And you
it doesn't have to be as hard as you're making it, guys.
And it ends up being a good thing. And like you say, that goes back to, Everett Burrell, from Optic Nerve back in the day. And because they know their stuff, and they're doing this stuff now, and presumably they're taking what they learned from that into this. And that's why it's a joy. Whereas you might get some 25-year-old executive, with ears on, telling you what's happening. And you're like, what your head is still soft. What are you talking about?
Like they might have a lot of money and a lot of very like flashy IP that's like cool that everybody wants to work on, but fuck, that doesn't make me happy. Like we want to, we work pretty reasonable hours over here, and we,
that's what I was just going to ask you. If you're when things are really jumping over there, do you run shifts so that you don't have one crew working 18-hour days?
We have, since going union, like there's 8-hour minimum, so everybody works an 8, and most of the time it's just 8 and skate over here. People are in, it's almost like banker's hours the way the place is here. And the only time we run overtime is when I'm billing a show overtime, and they're all so scared of things costing a lot of money, so no one ever wants to pay for overtime. So unless they need it super fast, like we rarely work over 8s. And then when we do have to put in that occasional crunch for a weekend or a long thing, which doesn't happen all the time, everybody's fine with it, because it's not our normal operating procedure. When you have some shops that their standard procedure is you're going to be working weekends and like 10s or 12s,
Yeah.
Do you have a maximum number of shows that you'll have in-house at any one time?
I don't think I have a maximum. It's just how much we can organize ourselves to. I used to take, 8 or 10 projects at a time, and it was, a big juggling act. But, now we're like, right now we have 3 projects.
Would you have a supervisor for each one, or one supervisor running everything?
Well, so this is the thing. I've tried in the past to have people that are supervisors or people that are, quote unquote department heads or something like that to kind of help manage things. And I've found that at least the people that I've tried out just don't work out. It doesn't make my job any easier. It makes everything way more complicated. Unnecessarily, and then I'm just spending money on somebody that wants a lot of money because they call themselves a supervisor, and it's not adding any quality of life to it. So I would rather take less jobs that we can in turn, between the dozen of us, just kind of organize on our own, and we have some things in place that everybody's got all the information that they need. We have a server that people can log into and have access to the whatever digital assets they need or artwork or whatever, and then we have this big board with all the current projects, and it says like when the due dates are, and just like the broad stroke information, and everybody knows how to come and ask questions. I think a lot of people's problems always ended up saying, well, we don't have the information, or something like that. And it's just like, well, did you ask? Did you go ask Gary or go ask Jessica? Like, all that info's around. You just got to talk to people. Yeah. So it's finding a team that works good together and a method that works. And it's not for every shop, not for every person, but we found a way that works here.
That's cool, man. You were saying, just go back to what you were saying about the armor. You sculpted half the armor for
Umbrella
Academy, and you scanned it. So you did that in clay.
I just
so you're still getting your hands dirty.
Clay.
That's
awesome.
For sure. That's what I wanted to hear. I just, that.
Oh yeah.
Do you make a point of trying to find a couple of little things you go, oh, I really want that for myself, and and do something.
The risk is me. The risk is sometimes me taking on things that I'm like really excited about, and then other things kind of get pushed to the side. So I have to balance how much I'm doing. But like the other, what was it last year or the year before when we were doing Kenobi? Like I wanted to machine lightsabers. So I pretty much said, everybody else, like, leave me alone. I'm machining lightsabers. So like me and my buddy Jeff, like we just made lightsabers for like 3 months or whatever it was. And it was great. So
what a fucking sentence. I wish you could play that back to yourself 30 years ago. You'd be like, wow, just say that again for yourself. Yeah. That's awesome.
No, it was fun. And I even like tried to challenge myself a little bit more. The one lightsaber that we built, I made all out of titanium. So I just kind of, like aluminum's the easy answer, a little bit of steel, a little bit of brass, but I was like, no, I'm going to turn it up. We're going to put a lot of titanium in these lightsabers.
Nice.
So the challenge in that was teaching myself how to properly machine titanium, getting the feeds and speeds right, and using the coolant and using the right kind of tooling, and I got to learn something new. So that was fun.
Do you think that when you get if you're an actor and you hand someone a prop like that and it's like, whoa, do you know what I mean? The how it feels in the hand, it might look the same from a distance as if it was just, polyfoam and painted up silver. But do you know what I mean? There's a response to how you deal with it, like there is with makeup. You actually interacting with a real thing in real time. And that's why it's worth putting that effort into stuff, because
I think so. But it's also like me putting it's me putting my little stamp on it, like first titanium lightsabers,
But actors that must have done these shows before, a million different kinds of these things, when they pick up one, they go, holy shit, this isn't like the other shit.
That's nice, but this is Ippolito.
Trust me, nobody knows who my name is over there. We're like, for shows like that, we're just a vendor. Like they might as well be going to 7-Eleven and picking up a beverage. Nobody knows who we are. We're like,
but it's having that pride in your work, isn't it? And also pushing yourself.
But that's for me. Like that stuff.
Sure. Yes.
Like nobody over there cares about my titanium lightsaber.
No, but the point is, you could have approached it as like, what's the cheapest, the quickest way I could get away with it, and that's not what you were doing. And that's a good. You expressing that is something I think people need to hear, or starting out or doing stuff, is that there's an integrity to it. You really want it to be. You want it to be good for yourself. No one needs to make sure you don't fuck it up. Be like, I don't want this to be anything other than flawless.
My dad always used to tell me, anything worth doing is worth doing well.
Yeah. Wow, and it's a little engine that you kind of try, but I know you can't do it on everything, but
you have to pick and choose when you're when you're
Yeah.
putting the titanium in and when you're 3D printing something for sure.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Going back to like the 14-year-old Frank like nerd prop hierarchy, we also got to build proton packs for the last Ghostbusters. So in the past 2 years, I've built proton packs and lightsabers. Like I can die happy now.
A real proton pack. I mean, a real proton pack
Yeah.
is something I would love to have.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Was that
we-
the one with the kids? The
the new one? Yeah.
anyway, yeah, I saw that on the
Yeah.
on a flight over, and yeah, it was good.
So-
I enjoyed it.
We built 4 stunt packs that were always pegged for one specific scene. It's the scene where the original Ghostbusters were standing by the car and Gozer like fires at them and they get pushed against the car. That was the scene that these packs were built for. But a buddy of mine that does post-production said that they were replacing stunt packs with real packs a lot because people liked how light ours were. Our packs only weighed like 8 pounds. So
Nice.
I've heard rumors that ours were used in more places and then it was digitally touched up because ours were always meant to just be stunt packs.
Yeah. Fantastic.
That's good enough for me.
You do good work, Frank.
Well,
You do, and
it's
it
a-
shows.
It's a
You
total
always
team
have.
effort though. Like it's trying to surround myself with people that are better than everybody's better than the next person or everybody's
Yes.
like,
That's a synergy
kind of
thing.
yeah, like
Thingergy.
I'm
Synergy.
Thingergy.
Thingergy.
It's a thingergy thing.
Yeah. Like I'm competent at stuff. Like I could make things, I could do stuff, but like being surrounded with people that are like way better painters than me or way better sculptors than me or way better, like I love that stuff. Just being around all these great people.
And I guess
So
you
it's-
see that and it ups your own game, doesn't it? Because you're like, oh god, you know, when you're surrounded by that good stuff, it kind of you'll whenever you do something similar, you'll be learning from them, and you have a new baseline of what's acceptable in your head because you've seen the very best do stuff. So
Yeah,
it juices up.
it's great. And I think that everybody takes all these opportunities as chances to level up their skills also. Like every time we're doing something, we're trying to like push a little bit better and make stuff a little bit nicer and do something that we haven't done before.
Well, I
But
think you were saying that with your team as good as they are because of that, I think we shouldn't take away from the fact that you've had to struggle and deal with those difficult situations when it was time to let someone go and look for somebody else to make things work. Those are hard things to do, and not everyone can do them. But the net result is you have this sweet team. You're going to get better at sniffing out stuff that you think is going to be problems for your nice team because you want to keep that going. So you put the hours in and done the stress to get to that point. So you know that's as much a creative and hardworking act as a sculpting thing. So. You know,
One of the
I don't
hardest
work there,
things-
but thank you for doing that because it means, you know, you've got a group of people who are going to make really good stuff and that has ongoing benefits. That's amazing that people can do that. So,
yeah.
Yeah,
One of the
feathering
hardest
cap.
things that I've ever had to do was firing or letting go of people. And there was a time, it was back in like late 2018, where it was just things were weighing on me and I was really confused on what was going on and everything. And I came to the conclusion that I needed to kind of like clean the slate and sort of start over. And I let go like all but like maybe like 4 people in my shop. And at this time I had like 20 something. I just needed to retool and needed to rechange. And it was such a hard decision to come to and it weighed on me for so long about what that was. And some people still hold it against me for some reason that I had to let them go, even though this is a fucking freelance industry. And what are you talking about? But that was letting people go and having to manage in those terms, or even when somebody has to like quit or like somebody wants to take another job, like do something different. I don't take any of that stuff lightly. It weighs on me. And I always point that towards myself, like, okay, what did I do wrong? What should I do different? How do I learn from this? How do I grow from this? And I've had a lot of people that, you know, have come and gone that are great, and I'll hire them back here any day. And then there's a lot of people that when I have to make these tough decisions, make it very tough on me and on all the rest of the people in the building. And they just make it clear that they don't want to be here. That's fine.
yeah, but that's a tough place to be. And I think anyone that's going to run a company is going to have those kinds of things. And there's a certain freedom that freelancers have where they're never in that position. So they can go around feeling gnarly about it because they never had to do it themselves. You know what I mean?
No, everybody thinks that they know what the next person up the rung. They're like, oh, that person's got such an easy job. Like, why don't they do this? It's like, oh, it's so hard. Like running a company, I know to back up like way back, I never sought out to own a company. Like when I got into this business, I would have been happy just being a mold maker because I love making molds. Like you guys have seen this before. Like I love it. And I would have been totally happy doing that. But for whatever reason, the world has steered me towards this. And, I started getting my own jobs, and then I needed some help, and then I needed more space, and then it turned into this. Had I known 10, 12 years ago how much taxes and compliance and insurance and like all this stuff was, like, I probably wouldn't have done this. Like, it would have scared me even just thinking of all the logistics of owning a business.
Adulting.
Yeah, like running payroll every week. My payroll every week is sometimes, like right now, it's like $20,000-$30,000 a week. My rent just went up on this building. My rent's $30,000 a month on this building. My insurance is like 20 some $1,000s a year. Like, you start thinking about that stuff and you're just like, why would anybody do this? Who would do that to themselves? And I'm a small business. Like, there's a lot of shops that are 2, 3, 4 times the size of me. So like, somebody's like, oh, I wish that I only had $30,000 in rent. But it's just like, it's so dumb. I wouldn't have done it if
It doesn't
I would
quite
not have.
elicit the feeling of, I'm just gonna relax today. I'm
No,
gonna let things slide till tomorrow.
no, you can't.
No, fuck it. Everyone dies,
Yeah.
but not everyone truly lives, Frank. So
Well, and that's exactly why I buy motorcycles and pinball machines, because that's what I do to keep fun. I think that people need to have hobbies that aren't what we do every day.
Sure.
Like we're all, makeup effects nerds or monster nerds or prop nerds or whatever we are. Like, we love film and building things, but dude, you got to get out and play. You got to do
Yes.
other stuff that like clears your head, like whether it's music or sports or whatever it is. Like, that stuff is so centering for me. Like,
Yes.
obviously not right now because my knees hurt, but there's times in the shop they're like, Frank, you haven't ridden in a couple of weeks. You should like, people know when I'm starting to get like a little tense, and they're like, go ride, because it just loosens you up.
Yeah, and I think it's also a testament to how well you're organizing things that you can have hobbies, because, as you know, a lot of freelancers they just live to work, which is, then you're managing everything wrong. If you're working all the time, always, then you've accepted an incorrect way of looking at things, I think.
Yeah.
Because you have to be able to make, otherwise what are you doing it for?
Well, that might come down to like, financial management too, like how you,
Yeah.
which goes back to running a business. Like, not every artist, like, you could be the most amazing key artist at whatever shop and blah, blah, blah. But that doesn't mean that you should be running the shop. You should just be doing your art, because maybe you don't have that business sense or the ability to hire and fire, or the ability to, do your taxes and communicate with a bookkeeper, or like all that dumb stuff.
All that dumb essential stuff.
Oh God, invoicing. I got to redo invoices again as soon as we're done on this thing, because a show that we're working on just changed how they want things again for like the third time. So I got to redo all my invoices.
Yes, that all of that has become quite tempting.
Well, that'll be a fun Tuesday for you.
That'll be fine. It's almost lunchtime anyways.
Are you still going to do any Creature Geek podcasts, or is that done and done?
I really, really enjoyed doing Creature Geek. The hardest thing for me was to get people to commit to coming on. Like, I'd go to, Monster Palooza or whatever, and I'd talk to whoever, and they're like, oh yeah, sure, whenever. And then I can't get Greg to come over to save my life, or,
It's like herding cats.
It kind of is. And I'm sure you guys have that problem too. Like, people that, everybody's got schedules, everybody's busy. I get it. But it's like, it's really, really hard to get guests on there.
Yeah.
And I find that if it's just me and Len talking, it'll just be like, what movie did you see last weekend? And Frank, how's the business running? Like, and then that's it. I'll rant about the company for 5 minutes, and we'll talk about whatever rad movie we just saw. And which, by the way, Prey is awesome. I just watched that over the weekend.
When I flew over, I watched a bunch of films. What did I watch? I watched the new Bond movie, but I also watched
Ghostbusters.
the new Ghostbusters movie. I was a bit resilient because my kid really liked it, and I was like, if you like it.
No, it was good. I thought it was great.
But I'm sat in a plane for 12 hours. What am I going to do? So I watch it. It's like, holy shit, that was really good fun. Really good fun.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, I thought it was. I'm very happy to have worked on a Ghostbusters that doesn't suck.
That is as good a place as any. That's the fucking perfect line.
That is a great button.
Amazing.
Well, I mean, that's all you can hope for, is to work on, you put your heart and soul into building these things, whether it's costumes or props or monsters or whatever. And all you can only hope that the people that are pulling the strings above you make it not suck.
I think that's something that a lot of above the line people have forgotten about the industry that we work in. It's the entertainment industry. It's fucking supposed to be fun.
People aren't filmmakers anymore. They're content creators. And too much of them are, not they lose track of what it is that we're really, really, really doing. And you know, CG or creatures or whatever, it all has to serve the story. Everything, like literally everything has to serve the story. If you have a horror film and it's a bunch of bloody effects, if it doesn't serve the story, it's useless. If you have a creature like something cool like Vecna, if it doesn't serve the story, it's useless. Stranger Things did an excellent job on, you know, everything that they put on that screen serves the story. Filmmakers are just bonkers sometimes.
Yeah, I like that, the distinction between directors and content creators, because otherwise it's just like, oh, I have to make something because we do it. Like we do the podcast, but we do it when we can, when we feel like we've got something to do, rather than just, oh, it's Wednesday, we're going to knock one out, and it's just, you know, it's whatever. It has to be worth doing, which means they're sporadic because we're both working, but
which is fine.
But it's just, I'd rather do that. And you know, like this is a good conversation. I would hate to not have something to bring, but that's why I'm curious about how this goes in the company and all this. And it's nice.
I'm glad we finally got a chance to do this, because we've been talking about it for ages.
Oh, I know. I mean, it's a different conversation, because, you know, we're not talking about, you know, glue and rubber on someone's face, or what, you know, what cool thing that Smooth On just came out with. We're talking about like the nuts and bolts of how this business works, and how, you know, people go to work at a shop and you don't often think about all the stuff that happens like up the chain, or like the responsibility that, you know, it's like it's my job to bring in like $2 million worth of work every year. Like that's what I need to keep everybody employed downstairs. Like that's a lot on my shoulders.
Yeah, it is.
And the fact that I've been able to pull off like near that level for, I don't know, past 5-6 years, I keep thinking that it's going to all fall out tomorrow. Somehow it keeps going, you know?
Knock on wood.
Well, employees don't often think about like what those people upstairs, like the pressure that's on them. So it's, if you don't have a good, you know, team that understands all of that stuff, like I'm super transparent with everybody downstairs. Like everybody knows how I bill, what I bill, like all these things. Like I've had these conversations before with other people. Again, back to the stupid nuts and bolts of the show, or, you know, running a shop. When we invoice labor, you know, we bill at like $110 an hour. And there's people, employees at other shops, that'll go, wait a second, you're billing me at $110 an hour to that production? Like where's my cut of that? You know, when somebody's making 35, 40 bucks an hour or something like that. And everybody downstairs understands this. And I think everybody that works in a shop needs to understand how this works. So you have your payroll, which is the money that the person gets. You have the workers' comp insurance and your taxes and stuff like that, which is another 20% on top of that. And then you have your union benefits, which is another 20% on top of that. So that average about $40 an hour person costs about $56 an hour. Somebody's going to check my math and tell me I'm wrong, but something like that. It works out to about 56 bucks an hour is my hard cost on average per person. And then on top of that, you take all the overhead and all this other junk. Like you can't, if somebody says, hey, will you build me a fake cell phone, right? You can't say, well, this is my overhead cost, and this is the toilet paper cost, and this is, you know, the internet cost. So you take all of those yearly costs and wrap it up into one ball and divide it by 12 months, divide it by 4 weeks, divide it by your average number of employees, which 15 is usually what I divide that by. And then you add that on top of that. And then you add in a 20% buffer, because people don't work the whole 8 hours that they're here. They go to the bathroom,
shit happens.
Phone, you have to redo something. So you add a 20% buffer on there. And that basically gets me up to $110 an hour. So
because that's how much it actually costs, because otherwise you end up working, and I've done this before, you know, work for companies that are trying to get really low, and they get the job because guess what, they were the lowest price, they won, well done. Now we're working every hour God sends, and then, oh shit, I accidentally spilt half a tin of part A, now I need to get a whole nother kit of this.
Well, so materials are a separate budget.
They didn't take the time to figure out how much does it cost for me to do absolutely nothing for one day. You know, this is a conversation we've had a number of times, is trying to figure out, because how much should we be billing and for our time, for our services? Well, you know, what's our time worth? Well, it's more than just how much you think you're worth. It's, you got all this other stuff that has to factor in that most artists don't think about, that, you know, what's your mortgage payment? What's your utilities bill? What's your Wi-Fi? It all somebody's paying for that, and
it very comes to a lot.
You can't give that away for nothing.
No, but that's the thing. Then when you run your budget together, you go, wow, that's a big number. The first
Yeah.
instinct people have is, let's reduce it so I get the job.
Yep.
And then you're like, well, now you just haven't made any money. And it's like, that's how much it costs. I guess the trick is to be fucking good enough that you're worth that.
Yeah.
Rather than
that's-
trying to figure out how you can cut corners. It's like, well,
Yeah.
find better clients.
Yeah. No, for sure. And
Good,
and
fast,
it's-
cheap. Pick two.
Well, I mean, and it's tough. You think about like building like a specialty costume, to build your first article. By the time you scan a dude, mill it out, do all the patterning, do the armor parts, do the like this and that, and then you have conversations, you have meetings, and blah blah blah. Like a first article on a specialty costume, it's not bonkers to say it's $80, $100, $150, $200,000, because you start adding up all of the people that need to put in all of that time. And you tell somebody that costume costs $200,000, and like, oh my God, where's $250,000 going into that costume? It's like,
Well, I have
labor.
a detailed breakdown for you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why those things cost so damn much, and that's
But the second one's not going to cost quite as much because
No.
you've already done
Figured
the
it
hard
out.
work.
yeah. Second,
Yeah, but
like if the first one's like, $150,000, the second one might be 40 or 60, like
Yeah.
somewhere,
I'm very pleased that you're talking, some numbers, because it gives people an idea of what things cost. Because when you say those numbers, they sound like a lot, but it's like, yeah, but the costs
A lot
to
of things
you are a
going
lot.
into that.
Just to be
Yeah.
there in that shop and do this and get this job costs you this much every year. It's like, of course it costs a lot of money. The fact you didn't know that
Yeah.
doesn't mean
Well-
I have to work for less money because you're a fucking idiot and don't know how much this stuff costs.
Yeah. But again, like I like to be very transparent with not only my employees, but also my clients. Like I'm happy to break down all of this stuff all the time to everybody that wants to know why things cost what. Because I think the more we're educated as craftspeople or as, clients or, as producers or whatever, like, why does a costume cost $250,000? Well, I mean, people got to have their insurance,
What do you think the next incarnation of you is going to be? You're going to become a producer, a showrunner? Do you see that in your future? Or have you even thought about it?
I'm trying to figure out what my next move is, and I have a bunch of like crazy pipe dreams, just personally, only Frank, not company. Like I feel that I've done everything that I've always wanted to as a little kid. I got to play an alien in Star Wars. I got to build lightsabers, got to build proton packs, got to,
Wait a minute, you get to play an alien in Star Wars?
Yeah, I was the calamari in the second season of Mandalorian, the one with the sweater on. Yeah.
Yeah, I
remember
have to
you
go back
posting
and
pictures of that.
Yeah.
check
So
that
yeah,
out.
my
Yeah.
favorite alien in all of Star Wars, the Mon Calamari aliens. I got to play one on the show, and I had lines and all that other stuff. And like,
Hell yes.
like how do you beat that as like a little kid? I mean,
You
maybe
can't.
play another alien. I've done all these things. Got to, be on the Black Pearl in the Caribbean. I've gone to premieres. I've gone to like blah blah, like all
You've
the
done
things
that,
that I
yeah.
ever thought like as a kid, and I've never sought out awards, so I don't give a fuck about awards. All the cool little moments I've had, I've done it, and so it's almost like I joke with my sister that I'm having a midlife crisis. Like I don't know what to do next, other than doing more. I'm kind of like, well, I'll keep doing this and I'll do more, but like, what do I really want next? And I don't know.
No reason
know.
you should have to make a
I don't
decision.
know, doing the most good for the most people.
You're
I
a
think-
long way from being grown up.
Yeah, that's for sure.
That's the way I like. I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up.
Yeah, exactly. I have pipe dreams about moving to Oregon and building a big giant barn and riding my dirt bikes in the backyard, but
Starting a reefer farm.
nah, I don't do that. I just
But after
drink.
6 months
Just
of that,
bourbon.
you'll get twitchy. You want to make
Start a
something
bourbon.
else.
Start a bourbon ranch.
There you go, a bourbon ranch. Yeah, I can grow the bourbon in the backyard. No, bourbon has to be from a specific region. Did you know?
It's in the South.
Here's a fun fact. If the place that a whiskey comes from has an E in the name, then it's whiskey spelled with an EY. And if there's no E in it, it's just whiskey with a Y. So like look at Japanese whiskey, it's just WHISKY. If you go to, you get an Irish whiskey, it's WHISKEY.
Oh,
So you
I
could-
didn't realize.
Yeah, fun fact.
Well, it's a shame I can't share a glass of bourbon with you, even if it is probably not. Oh, drinking time.
It's
But we
5
don't
Yeah,
do
it's
that.
almost 11 o'clock. Yeah.
Time to ring the gong.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Thanks.
we still every once in a while, like we'll have shot o'clock here at the shop about 4:30. We'll just
Shot o'clock. I like that.
oh yeah.
We will have that today in your honor, Frank.
At 4:30? Yeah,
Yes.
4:30 shot o'clock. Yeah, I'm taking my whole shop out to see Bullet Train today. That new movie Bullet Train that came out. We did a bunch of stuff on that. A bunch of costumes and props. We did a bunch of body parts too. I guess there's all these like arms and legs and stuff. We made those. Like costume character, like anime looking thing. We made that whole costume. And then there's these like masks that the bad guys have that are like Japanese Oni mask looking things. We made all those. Yeah, a whole bunch of stuff.
Do you have some pics of some of that stuff that we can put in the show
Sure.
notes?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
That'd be
Yeah,
great.
I'll send you some stuff.
Raiding your Instagram. Awesome. Frank, I think we should probably knock it on the head. We've taken up enough of your time.
Yeah, I know you've got things
Yeah.
to do and lunch to have.
Yeah, no, anything I could do to help. And if you guys find when you're putting this together that we're missing some sort of gap in a conversation that we need to, fill in with another question or something like that, just bug me and I'll help. I can jump back on
Thanks.
and fill in a beat if you need something.
So we hope you guys think that was as eye-opening and enlightening and enjoyable as we did. We had a great time talking to Frank, which I hope came across. And as usual, we'd love your feedback. You can get on to the Battles with Bits of Rubber website at battleswithbitsofrubber.com and leave us a voice message or leave us a text message. You can email us at stuartandtodd@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, and tell your friends. We'd love to grow the audience.
Talking of messages, we had a nice message sent in by Amy, and I'll play you a little bit of that now.
Hi Stuart, hi Todd. I'm Amy, I'm from Northampton, and for the last few months I've been listening to the podcast every day while I'm at work, and this definitely brightens up my day. And I am starting university in September at the University of Northampton. I'm going to be studying hair, makeup and prosthetics for stage and screen. It's a new course and I'm only in the second intake. I am so grateful to your podcast that, one, it's so entertaining and I've learned a lot from it, but I also love the real talk you guys do because that's what I need. I feel like with what you guys have given me, I know I've got like a realistic expectation of myself and what I can expect the university to offer me as well. I feel like I'm in a position where I can start and I will hopefully do some good stuff while I'm there with access to sort of materials and guidance that I wouldn't get at home. I love the podcast. The 2 episodes you did with Don Lanning gave me so much inspiration and made me feel really comfortable about my choice. But yeah, I'm just very, very grateful to you. Oh, and Todd, I did buy your first edition of your book, but I'm going to start reading it soon and absorb all of that. That's pretty much all I have to say. Thanks so much.
So that's a nice message from Amy. I really like that.
Very nice. Thanks, Amy. Made my day.
It's very cool, isn't it? So yeah, you can leave a message like that if you need to, or if you have questions, or if you'd like us to make, we could do an episode based on a problem you may have, because a lot of the questions we get are emails, which we put together. We have Q&A. We had a Q&A episode a couple of episodes back where we would, we go through things, and we'd love it if you would, send us some messages and give some fodder to work on.
And with that, we'll see you on the next go-round.
Cheers, Todd.
Cheers, Stu.
You can get in touch through our Facebook page or email us at stuartandtodd@gmail.com. Check the show notes for more information. If you enjoyed this episode, tell someone else and help us grow by sharing it on social media. Thanks for listening.